Last night, Jimmy Kimmel Live turned into an unexpected political showdown. Viewers tuning in for comedy were met with a fiery clash between host Jimmy Kimmel and White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. The tension began subtly, with Karoline stepping on stage confidently, dressed in a sharp blue suit. The audience reaction was mixed. Some cheered, others booed, but she maintained her composure. What started as a standard late-night interview quickly spiraled into chaos. Kimmel opened with his usual charm, introducing Karoline with a smile. She greeted him politely, ready to discuss White House policies and economic plans. The early exchange was civil, covering topics like gas prices and student debt. Karoline answered each question with practiced professionalism, sticking to her talking points. But the mood shifted when Kimmel smirked and asked if she truly believed what she said during press briefings. The audience laughed, but Karoline's expression hardened. Without missing a beat, Karoline fired back, stating she provided facts even when the media ignored them. Kimmel raised an eyebrow, mocking the word facts, as if it were a punchline. The crowd's laughter felt forced, the atmosphere growing tense. Karoline didn't flinch, countering that letting was harder than cracking jokes from a safe seat. Her sharp tone silenced some in the audience while others erupted in cheers. The divide in the room was palpable. Kimmel tried to regain control, listing criticisms of the administration, economic struggles, border issues, low approval ratings. Karoline listened calmly before turning the tables. She questioned what Kimmel offered beyond punchlines and laugh tracks. The audience gasped as she accused him of feeding division instead of fostering real dialogue. Producers backstage exchanged nervous glances. This wasn't the lighthearted banter they'd planned. The segment had veered into dangerous territory. Then, Kimmel played a clipped video of Karoline stumbling during a press briefing, drawing loud laughter. Instead of shrinking, she coldly dismissed it as a cheap trick taken out of context. She suggested Kimmel belonged at CNN, a jab that split the room. Half laughed, half applauded her. The energy was no longer playful, it felt like a political debate. Kimmel dropped his smile, pressing her on misleading the public. Karoline leaned in, matching his intensity. She accused his show of thriving on anger and division, saying he needed conflict to keep viewers hooked. The studio fell silent, phones recording every second. A producer whispered about cutting to commercial, but the director let it roll. Karoline turned to the audience, urging them not to let comedians dictate truth. Kimmel interrupted, claiming she dodged real questions. Her retort, that reporters should ask better ones, drew another gasp. The crowd was now fully divided, some shouting support, others heckling. Kimmel tried to dismiss her as a spin doctor, but Karoline stood abruptly. She removed her mic, declaring she wouldn't participate in a circus masquerading as conversation. With that, she walked off stage, leaving the audience stunned. Some stood, others sat frozen, unsure if they'd witnessed a meltdown or a masterstroke. Kimmel forced a grin, calling the moment different, but the damage was done. The show cut to a commercial, but clips were already flooding social media. Online, the reaction was instant. Hashtags like #Karoline Kimmel and #Press Secretary Walkout trended worldwide. Supporters praised her courage, critics called it a staged stunt. Celebrities and politicians weighed in, turning the clash into a cultural flashpoint. Late-night TV, usually a space for laughs, had become a battleground for credibility. Meanwhile, Karoline returned to the White House the next day, cool and composed. When asked if she regretted walking out, she simply said, "No regrets." Kimmel's attempt to joke about the incident fell flat. His usual charm felt hollow, and ratings dipped after an initial spike. Critics noted he'd crossed a line, trading humor for hostility. Meanwhile, Karoline's live stream addressing the clash racked up millions of views. Speaking directly to the camera, she explained she'd expected a discussion, not ridicule. Her calm demeanor resonated, especially with younger viewers who admired her poise. Unexpected allies emerged, like actor Chris Pratt, who tweeted respect for her composure. Even Oprah Winfrey sent a private letter praising her strength. The White House stood firmly behind Karoline, with the president calling her backbone in a public endorsement. Polls showed a surprising shift. Many Americans, regardless of politics, admired her refusal to be silenced. Late-night shows, once fearless in mocking officials, grew cautious. Behind the scenes, ABC executives panicked. Advertisers hesitated, fearing association with controversy. Kimmel was urged to apologize, but he resisted, hoping the storm would pass. Instead, Karoline's influence grew. She bypassed traditional media, releasing short policy videos that went viral. Each clip, free of interruptions, presented her arguments clearly. Viewers flocked to them, craving substance over soundbites. Colleges invited her to speak. Conservative groups printed, "I stand with Karoline" merch. Civics teachers used her clips to teach debate etiquette. The clash had exposed a hunger for respectful discourse in an era of shouting pundits. Kimmel, meanwhile, struggled to reclaim his show's tone. His half-hearted apology, "Sorry for not letting you speak," only fueled more debate. Critics called it too little, too late. Karoline's response to his apology was gracious, refusing to gloat. Behind closed doors, White House aides celebrated her handling of the crisis. Even opponents conceded she'd turned a PR nightmare into a triumph. The incident sparked broader conversations about media bias and the role of comedy in politics. Trust in mainstream media hit a new low, with viewers demanding fairness over theatrics. A month later, Gallup's Trust in Media report confirmed the shift. Over half of respondents wanted less sarcasm in interviews, and many said they'd listen more if officials were allowed to speak freely. Karoline, once a behind-the-scenes figure, had become a symbol of resilience. Her refusal to play Kimmel's game resonated far beyond politics, inspiring discussions about dignity in public discourse. Meanwhile, Kimmel's show never fully recovered its edge. The laughter felt forced, the jokes safer. Some speculated he'd been humbled, others said he'd lost his nerve. Karoline, however, continued her unconventional outreach, speaking at town halls and military bases. Her message was consistent: debate me, but don't mock me. The public responded, proving that substance could outshine spectacle. The clash also impacted late-night TV as a whole. Other hosts postponed political interviews, wary of similar confrontations. Netflix quietly shelved comedy specials mocking politicians, sensing the mood had changed. The era of punchlines at the expense of dialogue seemed to be waning. Karoline's walkout had inadvertently shifted the landscape. In Texas, a women's leadership conference gave her a standing ovation. Her speech about silencing versus debating struck a chord, with some attendees moved to tears. Meanwhile, Kimmel's ratings continued to slide. Comment sections filled with critiques that he'd lost his way. The divide wasn't just political, it was generational, with Gen Z embracing Karoline's unflinching style. Hollywood, initially dismissive, began reevaluating. Some comedians doubled down on satire, while others avoided politics altogether. The industry, built on provocation, now faced an audience craving authenticity. Karoline's rise underscored that shift, proving that respect could be more powerful than ridicule. Privately, Kimmel confided to colleagues that he hadn't expected her to walk off. The move, he admitted, had outmaneuvered him completely. His team scrambled to rebrand, but the shadow of that night lingered. Meanwhile, Karoline's social media following skyrocketed, her direct-to-camera videos setting a new standard for political communication. The president's offhand praise, "She just won over half the country," proved prophetic. Polls showed independents and even some detractors respecting her stance. The White House leveraged the moment, positioning Karoline as a voice of reason in a noisy media landscape. Her refusal to engage in mudslinging became her signature. Oprah's handwritten note, framed in Karoline's office, symbolized the broader cultural recognition she'd gained. It wasn't about politics, it was about grace under fire. Even those who disagreed with her policies admired her composure. The incident became a case study in media training programs, teaching when to walk away. Late-night TV's formula, mockery mixed with interviews, faced scrutiny. Audiences, it seemed, were tired of gotcha moments. Karoline's approach, bypassing traditional gatekeepers, hinted at a new media playbook. Politicians took notes, realizing they could speak directly to the public without filters. Kimmel's eventual on-air apology, though lukewarm, marked a turning point. It acknowledged that the line between comedy and cruelty had blurred. Karoline's response, "That's what adults do," closed the chapter with dignity. The clash, initially seen as a disaster, had reshaped both their careers. In the end, the showdown wasn't just about two people, it reflected a national fatigue with performative conflict. Viewers wanted substance, not spectacle. Karoline's rise and Kimmel's stumble signaled a cultural shift, one where authenticity trumped theatrics. The late-night stage would never be the same. A year later, the incident was still analyzed in media courses and political strategy sessions. Karoline, now a household name, had redefined the press secretary role. Kimmel, though still on air, had tempered his approach. The night comedy turned into confrontation became a lesson. In an age of noise, sometimes the loudest statement is silence.